Have you ever said something, and immediately wished you could pull the words back? That one careless sentence that changed the way someone looked at you, or worse, changed the way you looked at yourself. Words are strange. They seem light when they leave our mouths, but they fall heavy on our lives. And sometimes, what we say reveals what we are not yet wise enough to see. There's a quiet strength that lives inside intelligent men. You won't find it in how loudly they speak or how often they win arguments. You'll find it in their restraint, in what they choose not to say. Because a man's silence can tell you more about his wisdom than his words ever could. In a world that celebrates noise, the truly intelligent man practices something rarer: measured speech, disciplined thought, and mastery over impulse. He knows that every word carries weight, every sentence builds or breaks something, and so, he has learned to guard his tongue as he guards his soul. There are things an intelligent man never says, not because he's afraid to speak, but because he's aware of the cost. And it all begins with the most dangerous phrase of all: I know everything. The moment a man believes he knows enough, he stops growing. He stops listening. He becomes a prisoner of his own certainty. Intelligence turns into arrogance, and wisdom turns into noise. The Stoics warned against this long ago. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Think of the people who speak as if they hold the universe in their hands, the kind of man who interrupts before the question ends, who cannot stand to say, "I don't know." He wins debates but loses insight. He may impress crowds, but he learns nothing new. Because wisdom only enters a humble mind. There was once a young man, talented and ambitious, who built his career on being the smartest voice in every room. He had an answer for everything, a solution for everyone, and yet, when his company fell apart, it wasn't because he lacked intelligence, it was because he lacked curiosity. He had silenced the people who could have helped him see what he refused to look at. Only after failure did he realize that confidence without humility is blindness disguised as brilliance. An intelligent man understands this truth, that he doesn't need to know everything. He only needs to keep learning. He speaks carefully, he listens deeply, because he knows that every person he meets, even the quietest one, knows something he doesn't. The foolish man seeks to be right. The wise man seeks to understand. And when he doesn't understand, he does not fake certainty. He says, "I don't know, yet." That single word, "yet," separates arrogance from mastery. It's not weakness, it's the door through which all knowledge enters. Now, the second thing an intelligent man never says might sound harmless, but it quietly poisons the mind. It's the phrase, "It's not my fault." The human instinct is to protect our ego. When things go wrong, our first impulse is to look for someone else to blame. It feels easier that way, but the Stoics believed that blaming others is the fastest way to lose your power. When you say, "It's not my fault," what you're really saying is, "I have no control." And the moment you give away control, you give away your strength. An intelligent man understands that responsibility is not about guilt, it's about ownership. If something touches your life, it's your responsibility to face it. Even if you didn't cause it, even if it's unfair, because responsibility gives you the power to respond, and that's where freedom begins. There was once a leader who lost everything: his business, his team, his reputation. In his anger, he said, "They betrayed me. They didn't do their part." For months, he blamed everyone but himself. But nothing changed. Then, one morning, he looked in the mirror and said aloud, "This happened under my watch. That means I had a hand in it." It was the hardest sentence he had ever spoken, and the most freeing. Because the moment he took responsibility, he could finally take action. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the essence of intelligence, not arguing, not explaining, but embodying. Taking quiet responsibility without complaint or display. The intelligent man doesn't waste his breath defending himself, he uses it to improve himself. He knows that every time he blames others, he's handing them the keys to his emotions. He chooses instead to stand firm, to say, "This is mine to handle." Not because he loves the weight of blame, but because he respects the strength that comes from carrying it. And so he speaks less of what others did wrong, and more of what he can do right. He does not seek excuses. He seeks solutions. He does not hide behind, "It's not my fault." He steps forward and says, "It's my life, and I'll own every part of it." That's where true intelligence begins, not in knowing, but in taking responsibility. There's a quiet tragedy hidden in the sentence, "I deserve better." It sounds noble, it sounds like self-respect. But if you listen closely, you'll hear something dangerous inside it: entitlement. The belief that life owes you something simply because you've suffered, or because you've worked hard, or because you think you're different. But the truth is simple, and often hard to accept: life doesn't owe you anything. The Stoics taught that the world is not built on fairness, it's built on cause and effect. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you consistently create. Entitlement blinds us to this truth. It makes us bitter when life doesn't go our way. It turns effort into resentment, and gratitude into expectation. A man once worked for years in a company, believing his promotion was long overdue. He told himself every day, I deserve more. I've earned it. When the promotion went to someone else, he withdrew. He stopped giving his best. The irony was cruel. In his bitterness, he became the very reason he was never promoted. He thought he was demanding respect. But in truth, he was demanding reward without growth. Intelligent men understand this paradox. They don't say, I deserve better. They ask, what more can I become to deserve better? That single shift, from demand to development, changes everything. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do. He wasn't telling us to be passive. He was teaching us to align ourselves with reality. The more you fight reality, the more you lose. The moment you accept it, you begin to shape it. When you drop entitlement, gratitude takes its place. You start to notice the small wins, the unseen blessings, the quiet progress. You start working not because you're owed something, but because you want to become someone. And that's what separates an intelligent man from the rest. He knows that the world owes him nothing, but he owes the world his effort, his discipline, and his virtue. He doesn't say, I deserve better. He simply works until, better, becomes inevitable. But there's another subtle sentence that can quietly destroy everything you've built. It doesn't sound arrogant, it sounds harmless. It's the phrase, I'll do it later. It's one of the most dangerous lies the mind can whisper, because it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like comfort, it feels like control, it feels like you've made a decision, when in truth, you've only delayed it. Procrastination is not laziness, it's fear, wearing the mask of reason. Every time you say, later, you're telling yourself that you'll have more courage tomorrow than you have today. But tomorrow never brings courage. It only brings regret. There was once a writer who carried a story in his mind for years. Every day he said, I'll write when I'm ready. One evening, his friend asked him, and when will that be? He smiled and said, when I have more time. A few years later, that friend passed away suddenly, and only then did the writer understand the truth. There is no more time. There is only this moment, slipping away while we wait for perfection. Seneca wrote, while we wait for life, life passes. The intelligent man doesn't wait for the perfect day. He knows perfection is the enemy of action. He works with what he has, where he is, using whatever strength is available today, because today is all he's ever had, and all he'll ever need. The procrastinator thinks he's saving energy, but what he's really saving is regret, storing it for later. Every, I'll do it later, becomes a brick in the wall that traps him. And one day he wakes up and realizes that the wall is complete, and he built it himself. The Stoics saw time as sacred. They believed wasting it was worse than death, because death only takes the future, but procrastination steals the present. The intelligent man knows this. He doesn't wait for the mood to strike. He acts, even when it's inconvenient. He doesn't say, I'll do it later. He says, I'll begin now, however small. And in that small beginning, he finds momentum. Momentum becomes progress. Progress becomes peace. Because nothing brings more calm to the mind than knowing you did what you could, when you could. You see, intelligence isn't just about thought, it's about discipline. It's not how much you know, it's how much you apply. And that begins with what you do right now. So the intelligent man speaks little of someday. He lives in today. He understands that the clock is not his enemy, it's his reminder. Every second is a decision. Every decision is a sentence in the story of who he's becoming. And that story is written not tomorrow, but now. There's a kind of fire that burns without smoke, quiet, invisible, but deadly. It begins with 3 words, I hate him. Hatred is the mind's way of punishing itself for someone else's mistake. It doesn't destroy the one you hate, it corrodes you, thought by thought, moment by moment. The Stoics called anger a temporary madness, because it steals reason from the soul and leaves behind only chaos. An intelligent man understands that hatred is a luxury no wise person can afford. It's expensive, it costs your peace, your focus, your sleep. It poisons your mind long after the other person has forgotten you exist. There was once a man betrayed by his closest friend. For years, he replayed that betrayal in his mind like a looped film, what he should have said, what he should have done, how he would make him pay. But the friend moved on, while he remained trapped in an invisible cage built out of resentment. One morning, he looked at himself and realized that he had become everything he despised, bitter, reactive, small. And in that realization, something within him broke, but in the best way. He understood that forgiveness was not a gift to the other person, it was freedom for himself. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's refusing to let pain define you twice, once when it happens, and again every time you relive it. An intelligent man doesn't waste emotion on vengeance. He doesn't surrender his peace to someone else's chaos. He simply says, you no longer control how I feel, and in that quiet sentence, he becomes untouchable. The next phrase that never leaves an intelligent man's lips is, I can't. These two words seem small, but they carry the weight of defeat. I can't doesn't describe reality, it describes a belief. And most beliefs are stories we tell ourselves to stay safe. The Stoics taught that obstacles are not walls, they are mirrors, showing us who we are and what we still lack. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." To the intelligent man, I can't is simply unfinished. He adds one word to it, yet. I can't, yet. There was a young man who dreamed of learning to speak in public, but fear held him like chains. Every time he tried, his voice shook, his hands trembled, and he told himself, I can't. But one day, he changed the story. He stood in front of the mirror and said, I'll learn. He started small, reading aloud, recording himself, stumbling through every word. A year later, he spoke to an audience without fear, not because he had lost his weakness, but because he had learned through it. That is the difference between intelligence and despair. Despair sees walls, intelligence sees doorways. The wise man doesn't seek comfort, he seeks strength, and he finds it by walking through his own fear. I can't is a lie whispered by the part of you that fears change. The intelligent man answers softly, watch me. And then comes the final phrase, perhaps the most deceptive of them all. I don't care. It sounds powerful, doesn't it? Detached, independent. But behind those words often hides exhaustion, disappointment, or heartbreak. When a man says, I don't care, what he usually means is, I cared once, and it hurt. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional numbness. But the truth is the opposite. The Stoics didn't avoid feeling, they mastered it. They didn't deny emotion, they disciplined it. An intelligent man doesn't shut his heart. He keeps it open, but guarded by reason. He knows what deserves his care and what does not. He chooses his battles, his attachments, his responses. Because caring is not weakness, caring for the wrong things is. There was once a man who claimed he didn't care about anyone. He wore his detachment like armor, convinced it made him strong. But over time, that armor became a cage. He realized that by protecting himself from pain, he had also protected himself from joy. When he finally allowed himself to care again, even about small, ordinary things, the warmth returned to his life. Intelligent men care, but they care selectively. They give their attention only to what aligns with their values. They protect their peace not by closing their hearts, but by choosing where to place them. They understand that meaning is found not in having less emotion, but in directing it wisely. And when all these lessons combine, humility, responsibility, gratitude, action, forgiveness, courage, and discernment, they create a man who is not just intelligent, but wise. A man who speaks less, listens more, and acts with clarity. A man whose silence has weight, because it is not empty, it is full of thought. In the end, every careless word we speak becomes a reflection of our inner world. And every word we withhold becomes a sign of mastery. The intelligent man has learned that his voice is powerful, but his restraint is divine. He does not speak to impress. He speaks to illuminate. He does not argue to win. He argues to understand. He does not react to noise. He responds to truth. And when truth is best served by silence, he chooses silence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it. That is the quiet code of the intelligent man. He does not seek to sound wise, he seeks to live wisely. He carries calm in chaos, composure in conflict, and meaning in his words. And perhaps that is the greatest sign of intelligence, the ability to hold your tongue when the world demands noise. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a man can say, is nothing at all.